Hi, my name is Helena Hogberg. I am from NICETAM NIHS, and I'm happy to present one of the validation case studies, which is in the human thyroid microtissue assay. So the first question was, how and by whom was your validation study organized? So this validation study, it's actually still ongoing. It was coordinated by the National Toxicology Program Interagency Center for the Evaluation of Alternative Toxicological Methods, NICETAM, and the Interagency Coordinating Committee for the Validation of Alternative Methods, ICVAM. So how it happened was that the US EPA, which is the method developer of this method, and US EPA is also an ICVAM member, it reached out to NICETAM ICVAM to inquire interest to organize the validation study. And at that time, the method developer had already identified labs that were interested to participate in an assay transfer. And NICETAM then identified a validation management team, or VMT. We are also coordinating monthly meetings with the labs and as needed with the VMT. The VMT's role is then to provide feedback on, for example, SOPs, the study design, and also the data for each phase of the study to determine if it's suitable for progression to the next stage. And in the end, NICETAM will prepare a study report and an assay performance evaluation. So the next question was, how and by whom was your validation study funded? So in this case, the UCPA, which was the method developer, they provide all the key lab reagents. So they provide the cells, they also provide the media and supplements needed, as well as the antibodies. The participating labs contribute with labor cost in kind, and they're also using their own equipment in their laboratories. NICETAM will provide the chemicals and also the labor cost in kind. The next question was on the laboratory management design. So this is a bit of a smaller validation study. The coordinator, as I mentioned, was our NICETAM, and then we have 4 different labs participating. Method developer is lab 1, UCPA, and then we are dividing it into 3 different phases. In phase A, the method is transferred just to one lab, to lab 2, and when that has been successfully and approved by the VMT to progress, then it's transferred in phase B to lab 3 and lab 4. And at this stage, we are only testing positive control compounds, and they are the same for all labs. When we then are going to the last phase, which is phase 3, we have a small set that is less than 10 chemicals or proficiency compounds tested, and this will be tested at the same times for all 4 labs, and will be the same compounds tested. The next question was, how was the selection and procurement of the reference chemicals organized? So in this case, the method developer had already identified the first set of proficiency compounds, and the selection criteria for this was that they had a reliable response or no response in the assay. All the chemicals will be procured and shipped by NICETAM, and they will be blinded or coded to all labs, and decoding will not take place until we have received all the raw data from all the labs. And the idea is that if this first part of the validation, so this is part C, if that is successful, there might be a larger set of biological endpoint reference compounds that will be selected based on then on feedback from the VMT. So we likely want to include chemicals that are targeting different MIEs, for example, to understand the applicability domain also of this assay. So what were the main organizational challenges? Well, since we are still early on in the study phase, there haven't been any major challenges so far. Cross fingers. One challenge we observed was that some shipped material got stuck in customs. How we solved that was just to ship the material again. We also had one issue with one laboratory had their freezer breakdown, so some of the materials they received could unfortunately not be used, and again we had to ship some additional material in this case. So what were the main financial challenges? And here there is none at this point. However, if we're going to go into a larger validation study, we will have to revisit this and see how this financially can be met. So then in the conclusion, what factors do you attribute to success of your validation study? I have highlighted a few here. So I think for the validation process, one benefit was that the methods had a very high readiness criteria, and I think that is something that is very important before we going into some kind of validation study, just to both save time and money. It was very beneficial for us that the method developer really understands the regulatory needs and has been very engaged and involved in the whole process. We have had we have regular meetings with the participating labs where everybody's asking questions, everybody's very engaged, and which I think also is crucial for a successful validation study. Cannot say thank you enough to the VMT. They are very engaged and very experienced, and that has really been successful for us because they identified things in the protocols that needed to be adjusted ahead of time, which we're very grateful to. I think also one of the reasons why it has been successful is that we have the smaller step-by-step validation studies, and that simplifies the process a little bit. So we have as I said, the A, B, and C stages. And coming to the financial part, I think that also by having those step-by-steps or smaller validation studies, we could also save some costs. So for example, we could test fewer compounds if it's just looking at the transferability of the assay. One thing successful in this case is also the engagement of industry, because we could do some cost sharing with the industry, and I think that is something we should explore more, or could try to explore more in the validation stage. Like if the industry feel that this is an assay that eventually is gonna be filling a regulatory gap, they might be more interested of participating also in an early validation study. And I think one other thing that I think could be potentially done is to require lab transferability of assays in the EU cluster funded projects. I know that that's something that often is written in the proposals, but very rare it seems to happen. And I think if that would be required, or there would be a specific extra money that could be dedicated maybe afterwards to that kind of activities, I think that could be beneficial. So with that, thank you, and here's my contact information if you want to reach me.